Hello everyone, Fielder here. So now let's check out the fourth challenge of the Wataru collab event. And this fight is going to be like 17 minutes long, so it's going to be a bit of a ride. So, as always, I'm using SR units. And in this fight, you fight three bosses, and all three of them have classes, as opposed to the typical boss fight, where a lot of times they just have the generic boss class, which you can't have a class advantage against. So that actually makes this fight a little bit easier to plan for. So you can see that a lot of my team is my standard team. I have Matthew, Chris, Almeida, and I have Sophia as well. Now, two of the less used units that I have brought here are Emerick and Vargas. So the top boss, which is the main boss, I guess, is a Lancer boss. So because of that, I bring Vargas with Guardian Infantry out front, and Vargas is actually in his infantry class. So by doing this, obviously I have class advantage over the guy, and Vargas won't die. And I'm gonna need Vargas to be able to tank the guy pretty well. Otherwise, because I'm gonna need to leave Vargas alone to handle him alone while I take care of the mage in the bottom right corner. On the left side is a infantry enemy. So for that, I have brought Emerick. And so the reason I bring Vargas and Emerick is because they are pretty much the only SR units I can think of that will handle this properly. So for the top one, the reason I bring Vargas instead of someone like, say, Kirikaze or Parn in his infantry class, or even Lewin, is pretty much because the guy hits really, really hard. Like, if you don't bring someone with really high defensive stats, there's a pretty good chance they'll just die. So Vargas has a couple advantages, of course. Vargas, of course, is just really tanky in general, and it's easier to put defensive equipment on him and still have him be able to do a little bit of damage by putting a power stab and converting him over to attack. And of course, Vargas has attack intimidate, which I brought along here. Now, typically when you run Vargas, a lot of people like to run Battle Cry. But in this case, I feel like Attack Intimidate is a lot better because there's going to be a couple turns where I need to just sort of end Vargas's turn, and I can't, I can't attack with him. So Battle Cry wouldn't work in that case. So you just have Attack Intimidate when you end turn, lower the guy's attack, and it just makes it easier for Vargas to survive. So on the left side, I have Emerick. So I think that's kind of self-explanatory. Emerick is a very tanky cavalry, so he works pretty well for occupying that infantry. He can pretty much just hold that position forever, with Sophia standing next to him, supporting him. The guy on the left side has a number of mechanics that essentially say, like, oh, you need to have someone standing next to you, or you're going to suffer a lot of very annoying effects. So, I just handle that by having Sophia stand next to Emerick. Emerick, of course, is, like I said, is a very tanky unit, and he has Royal Cavs out front. So even though the infantry boss also hits pretty hard, Royal Cavs plus Emerick in his cavalry class and his very tanky talent allows him to just handle the guy and pretty much hold that position forever. Now, if I get a little bit unlucky with the boss's debuffs, which forces, you can see like the Curse of Wounding ring that's on Chris right now. If that landed on Sophia, that might make things a little bit more difficult for me. But if that lands on Sophia, there's actually a way for me to handle it. So I don't need to worry about it. Okay, so the bottom right is the boss I want to beat up first. As you saw earlier, I just surrounded him so that he couldn't move anywhere. And now I'm actually rearranging because this is the third turn, and the guy's about to fire off a Tank Buster attack. The Tank Buster attack is very, very inconvenient for my strategy purposes. So basically the way this Tank Buster works is that if you do not guard it, it does 100% increased damage. So you need to bring someone who has a magic guard if you don't want us to just instantly kill somebody. And if I'm limiting myself to SR characters, basically the only person that can do that is Freya. And I tried that, and Freya, if I bring Freya, that basically means I don't have enough damage to be able to finish this map on time. So I tried playing around with it a little bit and seeing if I could survive, just maybe taking it. Maybe if I got a damage taken decrease buff and maybe like debuff the enemy, like maybe I can survive it. And I tried that a couple times and it didn't work. Even with angels out front, it does not work. So I tried killing him so fast that maybe he wouldn't be able to use it. And with SR units, that's not possible either. So what I ended up deciding on doing is I have brought Redeemers on Chris. And basically, just the solution is to just let Chris die one time, as you saw. And that makes it so that the it gives me a lot of leeway to finish the guy off. The cooldown on that skill is pretty long, so it's very difficult to kill him. Probably impossible with SR units to kill him before he uses it the first time. But if I can just let Chris die once and not care about it, I have to wait until the second time he uses it before I'm really in trouble, and that's not really going to be an issue at all. So aside from that, that mage boss in the bottom right corner really doesn't have anything I need to worry about. He does have an AoE that does random debuffs, and that's why I have brought Holy Ring on Almeida, because if he silences Almeida, I will be really mad. So I just, get ahead of that and just wear a Holy Ring. Almeida, as always, is very useful in these challenges because she's just debuffing attack, defense, everything, making things go faster and making them hit a bit softer, which makes things a lot simpler to do. So now, as you can see, the boss in the bottom right corner is about to get taken care of. So after I take care of the boss in the bottom right, I basically just move everybody to the top, the main boss, Grenier, and have everybody else and basically just have everybody dogpile him until he dies. So the top boss, essentially the biggest mechanic the guy has is kind of the opposite of the bottom right mage boss, is that if you guard for that boss, he's going to do a bunch of nasty effects. That's not too bad, honestly. Basically it just puts Vargas out of commission if he guards, because it stuns and it can't be resisted or dispelled. Not a big deal, because as long as I make sure to fill up Matthew's HP and Chris's HP, they're both wearing last rites, so they can usually take one attack from Grenier without much problem. So I don't need to worry about running in and out over and over. As you can see here, I am finishing off the mage boss. And the reason I brought Chris, of course, is aside from being able to take a hit from the mage boss, it's also the fact that, because as you can see, I'm kind of splitting my team up into pretty far away from each other, so I need units that can heal people from all the way across the room. And of course, Chris and Almeida are units that can do that. Sophia can't do that. So now the rest of the fight is pretty straightforward, I think. When you kill either of the ads, they will power up the central boss. So because I killed that mage boss, now the Grenier boss has a lot of extra HP, or a lot of extra stats, I mean. And that makes things a little bit more dangerous, so you do need pretty good stats to make sure you don't die. Now, I am aware that there's quite a few players that kind of just soloed the central boss with like Reen or Elwyn. Basically a really, really strong infantry DPS. Like I said at the beginning of the video, the SR infantry really cannot handle this guy alone. I tried doing it with Kirikaze a little bit. Kirikaze could sort of handle him for a little bit, but it just wasn't very consistent. Kirikaze needs to crit to be able to stay healthy enough, and sometimes he would just die. Like, you can try to bring Roar on Kirikaze when Grenier is about to use a special attack to try to prevent the death, but generally, like, it's easier to just not avoid having to deal with all the RNG involved in using Kirikaze, and just bring Vargas. You can take him forever. So you can see now I'm just, I just need to surround the guy and beat him up. So aside from that single target skill that this Grenier boss does, he also does like essentially a black hole AoE, which does debuffs. You just heal that up, not a problem. And while that's all happening, left side, Emerick still slowly chipping away at the infantry boss. And the only thing I need to be careful of is the forced guard debuff that the Grenier puts on a random unit every couple turns. And you're actually going to see me screw up with that debuff later on, because I just, this, one of the things about challenges like this is that they make them go on for so long that they're trying to wear your brain down and make you screw up. Obviously, I could have just used the Clock of Forgiveness when that happened, but I try not to use the Clock of Forgiveness in these videos. So as you can see, you know, just using Sophia to buff up Emerick. Obviously, Sophia is, you know, Sophia of course needs another mention here just because she gives people a 30% defense debuff, which is very, very good. Just chipping away at the Grenier. Not much else left to say. Once you figure out the puzzle, I guess, of this map, it's actually a pretty straightforward stat check. So you can see that Almeida has the Forced Guard debuff right now. The Forced Guard debuff is placed by Grenier. It forces you to guard within 1 ring, and you will take extra damage when doing so. So it's just important to line up your character so that you make sure that the Forced Guard unit does not have to guard, unless they're just really tanky. You know, if you have a maxed out Landius, you have a maxed out Layden, or you know, just or even a maxed out Hilda, you know, any kind of good tank shouldn't really have any issues tanky even with that debuff up. And of course, if all else fails, you know, most of the good tanks in this game have a revive, so that's always a thing to fall back on. And as you can see, like, my Vargas still has his revive, so that's still something I can fall back on if I really need to. Also, I just screwed up and I used Unbreakable Guardian on Vargas without realizing that he had a anti-buff. It's the little things like that that can get you. So you'll notice that in some of these challenges, I've been getting in more of a habit of bringing the Roast 3C skill on Almeida. You know, I used to crap on this skill a lot, but it's actually been surprisingly useful in a lot of PvE settings. It's an extra AoE heal, and you know, it just throws out more random debuffs. And the thing about Almeida is that even though all her debuffs can typically stick on these boss fights, it is still a random debuff, so it's nice to have a skill like Roast that can make it a little bit more consistent. Make sure you can get the key attack or defense down debuff. The only annoying thing about Almeida's Roast skill is that it actually has an expanded debuff list compared to her talent. The Roast debuff list actually includes skill and critical hit rate and critical damage debuffs, so it's loaded up with a bunch of debuffs that actually are not that useful. That's a little bit more useful in a PvP setting when you want to overload someone with a bunch of nonsense debuffs, but you know, who the hell uses Almeida in PvP other than me and a couple people? So because killing the 2 side bosses powers up Grenier in the middle, I do want to try to avoid killing the infantry boss too quickly. I mean, you know, I really don't want Grenier to get any stronger than he already is. He's already doing a lot of damage, and I don't really want to deal with more. Yeah, as you can see, Emerick just tanking that guy all day. Doesn't need to worry about anything. Alright, so I'm just regrouping here. Took a little bit too much damage, so I just need to group back up, heal up a little bit. I also line up in a way so that Vargas will take the attack skill directly into his face. By doing that, he won't be stunned next couple turns. And here is a place where I screw up. I just forgot to move Sophia out of the way. So Sophia's going to guard Emerick here, and she's just gonna die. You know, like I said, you take extra damage, so even with the Shrine Maiden, she didn't stand a chance. But it's okay. Like the map is almost over. If I had made that kind of mistake earlier on the map, obviously I would have to start over. But I'm too lazy to take this recording again, so I'll just take this recording as it is. And you can see the Grenier is nearing death as well. So overall, this fight, the mechanics are pretty simple, I would say. You just need to take a minute to really read and understand what's going on. And once you figure that out, it's really just a straight stat check. And the stat check, as always, is pretty rough. You know, as always, I'll have the stats of my characters on the sides. This obviously is made a lot easier if you use SSR units. You know, like I said, you can bring... there's a variety of very good infantry PvE units to be using. And even in place of Matthew, like if in place of Matthew you could have another infantry DPS, then of course that just if you do it the same way I do. So you can see what I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna run Emerick away. Now usually if you stand outside these enemies' attack range, what's gonna happen is that they actually just get a buff. That increases their movement and damage dealt for the next turn so that they can reach you faster and then do more damage. So basically it's just a mechanic to punish you for trying to stay out of their range or kite them. But it's not a big deal because, you know, the guy has like 1% HP left. He's going to die in the next attack. And it's the same thing with the Grenier boss. He's about to die as well. So I don't need to worry about anything. I just need to heal back up. Okay, finish off the Colossus. I probably should have saved. I probably should have saved that move for last, but whatever. So I'm just gonna finish off the boss here, and that's going to be it for the 4th challenge here. And Chris is gonna attack, and she's actually going to self-destruct. But hey, you know, a win's a win. Okay, I'll see you guys in the next one.